What's up, everyone? This is Grayson the Dean 221 Nichols, and we are here today with a new lineup on Poker After Dark. As you see, we got the following: Justin Young, Jake Daniels, Sam Soverall, Chris Johnson, who's a newcomer to the group, Jonathan Little, and Alex Ding. You know, this was an interesting episode. A lot of these guys were gambling with each other, making some moves, playing really well. Like, there really isn't a weak player in the bunch. Typically, at a cash game, there's going to be one player who's, I guess they say in rounders, right? If you can't spot the fish in the first 30 minutes of the table, well, you guys know the rest. So this is a tough table, and this hand in particular is really interesting. It involves Chris Johnson, who's a really tough pro, who's kind of under the radar. People probably don't know him. I went deep in a tournament in the WSOP with him once. It was, I believe, the 5K Omaha High Low tournament, and I got 18th, and I think he final table, if I'm not mistaken. He is a really tough player. He definitely had control of our table always, and I played against him in Hold'em once too. And yeah, he's a really really solid player. And Jonathan Little, his opponent, also good, good professional. He is a poker coach as well, has a poker training site. Smart guy, I used to play against him online a fair amount. And so you have a battle of two tough players here. So let's hop right into it. The game is 25-50 with a straddle. And so Chris goes ahead and straddles under the gun here to 100. And Jonathan picks up ace jack of diamonds. So he opens to 300. He gets called by Alex Ding with ace-2 suited, and Chris calls from the straddle with queen-8 of clubs. So somewhat of an action flop here. Chris flops a gut shot with an overcard and a backdoor flush draw. And Jonathan flops, great flop for Jonathan with overs and the nut flush draw. I shouldn't hesitate by calling jack an over here, because a very common hand for an opponent to have might be jack 10. So even if the jack does hit, it's not necessarily, John's not necessarily got the nuts or anything. And that's something important to remember. When you say I have two overs, make sure that your overcards, when they hit, aren't likely to be a second pair for your opponent, right? An example of that might be on a board that you have ace king, yet say the board is 7-4-3, and your opponents might have ace 7, ace 4, ace 3. So maybe your ace could be a problem at that point if you hit it, right? Just keep that in the back of your head. So Chris checks. John goes ahead and c-bets. Good bet, somewhere around a little over 2/3 with his nut flush draw and overs. Alex, of course, folds with his total nothing. And Chris calls with his gut shot and backdoor flush draw. So this is where it gets really interesting. And I mean, talk about like the turn of the year for Mr. Johnson over here. My man spikes the jack of clubs, just like, what run good, right? And what an unfortunate card for John. So Chris, of course, checks here. And this is an interesting spot for Jonathan, right? So I apologize. The stack sizes are off here because I actually specifically remember what was interesting here about this spot, that Jonathan had 12,000 back when he bets 2K here. So the pot's about 2,500. Jonathan bets 2K with 12,000 behind, and Chris moves all in, right? So this is a spot where, Jonathan clearly cannot fold his hand with the ace jack of diamonds here. At worst, he's up against a straight or he's up against a set, and he has equity against both of those hands, right? At best, though, this is where it trips me up, because I don't really see a ton of hands that Jonathan is dominating ever, right? Queen jack, he can't even have a queen jack of clubs, obviously. King queen, that's the nuts. Jack 10 is probably one of the better scenarios for Jonathan, to be honest. He still has obviously a fair amount of equity against that hand, but he's still not going to have much more than like 30% going to the river. So it's a really tough spot that he finds him in once he bets the 2,000 and Chris re-raises all in, right? But here's the issue, when you find yourself in a spot where you're between two suboptimal decision points, right? That often means that we made a mistake at the prior juncture. So let's look at John's 2K bet here. Is there a chance that's a mistake? That's a tough one. I'm really not sure. I think this is a really difficult spot. And I think that his bet makes a lot of sense with how wet the board is, especially seeing as how we shouldn't fear a check shove that often. It's just not something that happens a ton. I think he'll call more than he check raises or check shoves on this board. However, if he makes any sort of check raise, it would commit John for his stack. So this is something we clearly do not want to see here. So I would be careful betting the turn if I felt my opponent was capable of check raising said turn. If my opponent's more of the type that calls, then definitely love the bet for sure. But if they're the type that's capable, it's a really difficult situation for us. So I could see a universe where you check back. However, there are a number of bad rivers for us. I would say an 8, a 10, a queen, and a king, most notably. Granted, all of the diamond versions of those give us the nuts, right? So it's a really tough spot for Jonathan. I think in general here, when you're up against good opponents, just betting here and being willing to roll with it like he did, just kind of like Sai getting it in at the end, probably makes the most sense, right? Against a weaker opponent, I might consider checking back the turn to ensure that we, see the river and know that it would be a check raise range that we're really not in good shape against at all, right? Plus, I think when we bet that turn, it's important to think, like, what are the hands that Chris is calling with that are good for us, right? Like Queen Jack, King Jack, Ace Queen probably doesn't find his way here. Ace 10 is folding by now, right? So it's an interesting spot where it seems like it would be an automatic bet for us with the Ace Jack suited. However, I'm not entirely sure it is because of A, the fear of, being check raised here, knowing that we have to run it, yet we're not beating anything. And the idea that, like, what is he really calling us with that's much worse here? Like, I guess we could get value from, I guess some sort of club combo that he could have, but I'm not sure what club combo caused the flop. And again, to me, it just stands out as like a lot of Queen Jack, King Jack that we'd really be hoping he has, which are definitely cogent portions of his range. However, I'm not sure there are enough of it for me to consider betting. So yeah, interesting spot. I really, usually by the end of this video, when I talk it out loud to you guys, I feel really confident that I know what the best spot would be, the best line. But here I'm not entirely sure. And I look forward to discussing this hand with some of my friends as well and some of my students. Look forward to hearing you guys' thoughts too. Write in the comments. Let me know what you think about John's bet on the turn. Really difficult spot. Two tough players going at it. So yeah, interesting hand to discuss. Would love to hear what you guys think. Best of luck on the felt this week. And don't forget to check out the new high stakes poker review video on Thursday morning, which we'll be covering the newest episode of High Stakes Poker on Poker Go that they run every Wednesday night. So yeah, see you guys on Thursday morning. Good luck this week, everyone. Take care.